apparently like a guy's weekend or something like that, and there was like a bunch of guys there drinking, doing drugs, had a fire going on the deck, and eating food, just hanging out and stuff like that, with taking shots, doing cocaine, smoking weed, hanging out by the fire, and just talking and like almost like getting to know them in a way. And that's where I met Alex Murdaugh.
Hello and welcome to True Crime Rocket Science, the most authentic voice in true crime. Well, that was the voice of Lindsay Edwards. She's 28 years old at the moment. She said that she had an encounter during a guy's weekend 8 years ago at the Isle of Palms when she was a 20-year-old, and I think she was with 2 or 3 other women, other sex workers. And I think the value of this scenario, which may or may not be true. Some elements may be true, some elements may be exaggerated. But I think the value of this scenario basically imagines a different version of Alex Murdaugh to the one that we know. And we already know that there is a different version. The question simply is, how different is he to the version that everybody thought that he was, the version that Maggie thought that he was. And this whole thing addresses issues of infidelity for one, and there's been other incidents of infidelity as well. And then also addresses this idea of him being a drug addict. He went into drug rehab, and we know that he was an opioid addict, but could it not have been worse than that? And so Lindsay Edwards basically gives us an idea, an impression of this other Alex Murdaugh, this other sort of beastly animal whose eyes turn black. And often in the same way when someone is drunk, another person emerges. That same dynamic can occur in the bedroom as well.
Yeah, and you could just see it in his eyes, like, I don't know if it was between like the cocaine and everything, but just like even like his pupils just got so much bigger to the point where it was like his eyes were just like almost solid black in a way.
But before we get to that, if you haven't subscribed to this channel, True Crime Rocket Science, if you haven't already subscribed, please do. To the thousands of you who have subscribed, welcome to the most authentic voice in true crime. I've recently put up a new episode on the Team Peachtree channel, part 3 of the voyage of Magellan, where the ship Victoria makes it all the way back. I used footage from my trip, holiday I did in November around the South African coast. I put some of that footage up, some footage of Timmy as well. It's getting quite good reviews based on the comments, so please check that out. If you're enjoying this episode, please like, share, leave a comment. You can also hit the thanks button, and let's get started. In the courtroom, you see this guy with snot coming out of his nose who seems to be trembling when you say certain words, and he shakes. His eyes go red. He can't stop crying. He can't stop dabbing his eyes. So what I do think gives this story some credibility is it is covered by Will Folks from Fitz News, and that occurred in early August 2022. And the article that he wrote goes on to note that Lindsay had 4 encounters with Murdaugh 8 years ago, and that she's still traumatized by that experience. And ultimately, the jury were barred from hearing claims that Alex had cheated on Maggie with Lindsay, for example, but specifically this testimony. And I think in the same way that you kind of get this idea, well, there's another Alex Murdaugh out there. When you see Alex Murdaugh on the body cam, when he's standing with a white shirt and he's apparently distressed, that is where you get that sense, well, there are actually 2 people in the story. There's the public figure, and then there's the man behind the mask. And the shenanigans going on behind the mask have now reached a really extreme level. And so in the same way where we see the murders of Paul and Maggie, which are extreme. The issue is, are extreme things going on in a sexual sense in this guy's heart and mind. And you kind of get a sense that there's a power dynamic going on, that this is someone who actually, for whatever reason, is a powerful figure, yet he feels powerless in his own heart and mind. He feels physically not very powerful. And he wants to exert that power. And you may remember I previously said that the motive here is greed. Well, there's also that greedy, entitled sense of, I want to feel, or I want to have this particular experience with a woman where I'm unhinged and where I can dominate and where I can let the monster out. I can let the monster run around for a while. I can go wild. I can let the dragon fly around for a few laps, right? In the article from Fitz News, I think it's quite eloquently expressed that he got dangerously aggressive to the point where Edward said that she couldn't breathe. But I mean, those words really say it all. Dangerously aggressive. And that was 8 years before what happened to Paul and Maggie. That's taking dangerously aggressive to the next level. Do you agree? Now, I'm not going to deal with exactly what happened during some of those encounters, but she did say that she felt like she was starting to black out, that she was seeing spots, seeing stars, that she was actually hurt. And but I will put a link in the description so you can hear it from her yourself, and you can decide on the veracity of what she's saying herself. You might think that this is reckless of me to say this, but this particular statement, I think, is less valuable whether it's absolutely true or not, than it is valuable that it opens the door, it opens your mind to this idea of who is this person really, but even more so, this idea that behind the public face, and so much of the story is about the public face of the Murdaugh family, and then there's actually something else going on. There's something much darker, much more sinister, much more evil that is sort of going on beneath the mask of that. And this story sort of addresses that idea, that there's this kind of schizophrenia where you have two, as I've said previously, there's this Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde scenario going on. And drug addicts can often move seamlessly between the two. Dr. Jekyll with people who don't know them in that private personal sense, and Mr. Hyde when they are either in the bedroom or unhinged and in their preferred space where they can let the monster out. The other thing to note is that the South Carolina Law Enforcement Division, SLED, spent hours interviewing Edwards in 2021. So they must have felt that there was something credible about her testimony as well. And so I think the takeout from this is you can think about this in your own life as well. If you get drunk, if you are having sex with somebody and another person emerges, doesn't that show a serious amount of repression going on? You're repressing who you are. And so if you want to live authentically and you want to live a healthy life, you want to try and have some continuity between the public face and the private face. You want to have some sense of resemblance between the two. And the more that you can reconcile the public face with whatever's going on behind the mask, or whatever's going on behind the mask with the public face, it can never be completely reconciled. But to the extent that it's extremely different, and the one side is completely different and completely repressed, that creates a dangerous schism that can come out when triggered and with catastrophic consequences. So if you can feel a great, that you're torn in two, that you're two different people. You have that a little bit with the Kylo Ren story in Star Wars. You need to try to figure out how to tame that monster, how to calm the dragon, how to quell that fire. And a lot of that is an emotional thing. It's about slaying that dragon, and it's becoming someone who's in charge of your own emotions. And in a lot of criminal cases, what actually is taking place is that the dragon comes out and the dragon destroys lives, including his own. And so when Lindsay Edwards talks about his eyes going black, it is like him becoming the dragon. The emotions, the suppressed emotions all come out. That is why it's so important, first of all, to recognize that there is a dragon, and secondly, to slay that dragon, to be the master of the dragon, not let the dragon be your master. Does that make sense? I'm not going to take it further than that. As I say, I will put links in the description so you can watch Lindsay Edwards give her interview with the Fitz News managing editor. I will also be continuing my analysis, just looking at how that the money, the Murdaugh money, what is the financial device that has actually put a lot of those millions out of the reach of debt collectors and people who want their money back. So we're going to deal with that in the next episode. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you guys next time.